After Trump publicly berates and pressures Prime Minister Burnham, the UK suddenly appears to leak details of an Iran invasion plan, raising the question of whether London is pushing back by exposing Washington's playbook rather than quietly complying. The UK seems to be repeating the same maneuver it used just before the US launched war in February, signaling its discomfort with American escalation by selectively revealing sensitive planning instead of offering unconditional political cover. After granting the US access to its bases, the UK now appears to reveal elements of Trump's desperate plan against Iran, suggesting that London is trying to balance alliance obligations with a warning shot about just how far the White House is preparing to go. The UK embassy is withdrawing staff from Tehran, raising urgent questions about whether this sudden evacuation could be an early indicator of US preparations for a full-scale invasion of Iran rather than just a routine security precaution. The last time the UK embassy pulled its personnel out of Iran was on February 27, just one day before war began, a precedent that makes this latest withdrawal look less like a coincidence and more like a grim warning signal of impending military escalation. On July 22, the UK government issued a new travel advisory explicitly warning against all travel to Iran, a move that not only underscores how dangerous officials now consider the situation on the ground, but also reinforces the sense that London is bracing for sharp deterioration driven by looming conflict. The UK travel advisory said, and I quote, "If you are a British national already in Iran, either resident or visitor, carefully consider your presence there and the risks you take by staying. British and British-Iranian dual nationals are at significant risk of arrest, questioning, or detention. Having a British passport or connections to the UK can be reason enough for the Iranian authorities to detain you. If you are in Iran, air, sea, and land routes under the control of the Iranian authorities. Ports and borders may close at short notice. There is ongoing disruption to communications across Iran, with limitations on internet access. The US and Israel have struck infrastructure across Iran. There are reports that suggest ports, roads, railways, bridges, energy facilities, oil production sites, water systems, and airports have been affected. If you are detained in Iran, you could face months or years of imprisonment. Iranian airspace may close at short notice. Iran's borders with neighboring countries may have restrictions for foreign travelers and may close at short notice. If you plan to depart Iran across a land border and consider it safe to do so, check the travel advice of the country you intend to enter before traveling to the border, including visa requirements. Entry requirements may change at short notice. Entry to countries bordering Iran is not straightforward, and some countries will ask for additional paperwork for British passport holders. If you intend to leave overland, you do so at your own risk." Unquote. The UK government has also advised against all travel to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan's Balochistan province, widening its warning map across multiple conflict-prone regions and underscoring just how seriously it views the risk of sudden escalation and instability. The British advisory further stressed that there is extremely limited government support available inside Iran, signaling to UK nationals that if they choose to remain, they cannot rely on normal levels of diplomatic or consular protection if the security situation deteriorates. Officials bluntly warned that no face-to-face consular assistance will be possible in an emergency for UK nationals in Iran, meaning that in the event of war, unrest, or a major crisis, people on the ground will be largely on their own without direct help from embassy staff. This tightening of travel advice and withdrawal of support came just days after the UK Prime Minister agreed to allow the US to use British bases for strikes on Iranian targets, a sequence that suggests London is simultaneously enabling American military action while trying to shield its own citizens from the fallout. New UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham has reportedly approved the continued use of British military bases by the United States, authorizing American forces to operate from UK soil for certain Iran-related missions described as defensive in nature. Burnham's decision explicitly allows US forces to use these bases for what London calls defensive strikes against Iran, signaling continuity with earlier policy rather than a sharp departure from the framework set under previous leadership. This shift was revealed after reports claimed Washington had pressured the new Prime Minister to stick with the line taken by Keir Starmer, ensuring that American access to key British facilities would not be interrupted by the change in government. According to those accounts, details of this US pressure campaign were outlined in a Bloomberg report dated July 21 and relayed by Iran International, which framed the episode as part of broader American efforts to lock in Allied support for the ongoing war. Trump and Burnham held their first phone call on July 20, shortly after Burnham entered office, using the conversation to set the tone for their relationship and to discuss how closely the UK would align itself with US strategy on Iran. Trump later characterized the discussion as very good and hailed what he called an outstanding relationship, presenting Burnham as a cooperative partner at a time when some other allies are more hesitant. By Trump's own account, the two leaders used that call to talk about North Sea oil, trade ties, the broader military alliance, and the tense situation around the Strait of Hormuz, signaling that energy security and maritime routes are central to their agenda. Burnham also invited the US president to Manchester for next year's G20 summit, a gesture aimed at reinforcing the importance of the transatlantic partnership and showcasing Britain as a key venue for high-level diplomacy. British media have reported that Washington specifically sought access to RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire and to the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean, viewing these locations as crucial platforms for operations linked to the Iran conflict. One US official has suggested that Trump is frustrated with other NATO allies over restrictions on basing and overflight, saying he is disappointed by those who are reluctant to open their facilities for the campaign. Starmer, when he was in office, initially rejected a US request to use the Diego Garcia base for strikes on Iran, signaling a reluctance to let Britain be drawn too deeply into Washington's offensive campaign at that early stage. That decision angered Trump, who later said he was very disappointed with Starmer's stance, using public remarks to vent his frustration over what he saw as a lack of support from a key ally. The UK government later shifted course and allowed American aircraft to operate from RAF Fairford, giving the US a practical launchpad on British soil for missions that London described as limited and defensive. Since then, RAF Fairford has become a focal point for anti-war protests, with demonstrators treating the base as a symbol of Britain's involvement in the Iran conflict and gathering outside its gates to demand an end to US bombing runs.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a banking dynasty meets tides of world history, intrigue, and a dash of myth?
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.